Okay, today F6 in tax computation we actually focus on how tax actually compute on employment income. Clear? Okay. First of all, to charge tax on the income from any kinds of employment of an individual, first of all you need to know the difference between employment and self-employment. It is very much important. Why? Because an individual will be taxed, an employee will be taxed under the employment income provision, whereas a self-employed will be taxed under the trading income provision. So initially one is employed, another is self-employed, that means individual who is involved in doing any kinds of trade. So you need to make differences between these two, employment, another is self-employment. Why? Because employed person will be taxable, or his income will be taxable under employment income provision. We'll discuss on that. Whereas self-employed person income will be taxable under the trading income provision. That's why we need to make differences between who is employed and who is self-employed. So in this chapter we actually focus on employed. Now, how we can make these differences? When an individual is employed under some employer, this is obvious that there will be a kind of agreement in between the employer and the employee. So, agreement. If the agreement of service or for service, suppose think yourself, if you are employed with some kinds of organization, first of all you have to sign an agreement with the organization. The agreement that is, you will be activated in that kinds of organization of a specific kinds of service, right? So when the agreement of service, that is employment. But agreement for service, suppose you are individually doing some specific kind of business, trading. In that case, you have to make agreement with your customer for a specific kind of service to be provided. So when the agreement for service, that means self-employed. Agreement of service, that means employment. Now, the important note is, we have discussed that is through the agreement we can find out who is self-employed or who is employed. But in several cases, there may not be any kinds of agreement in between. But afterwards, some kinds of facts, some kinds of activity through which we can divine a employee-employer relationship between people. What are those? Number one, an employer is obligated to offer a kind of activity, whereas the employee is obligated to carry on that activity without denying that. So if two persons are there in such a position, one is offering and another is doing the business without any kinds of denying option, that means there is a kind of agreement of employment. Clear? Then, for doing the activity, any kinds of asset necessary or any kinds of non-current asset or plant and machinery is necessary, it will be provided by the employer. Then this is employment. By doing these kinds of activity, the individual will be benefited by providing some kinds of basic bonus or different kinds of payment, then that is employment. And another important thing is, in doing the kinds of activity, the employee do not have any kinds of authority to hire an individual from the external sources. He himself is obligated to carry on this. And when there is a long-term relationship between these two people, then you can say this is a kind of employment. So whatever the earnings, or you can say whatever the income generated from these sources, that is employment income. And you have to charge tax on that on some specific criteria. Here, now, the thing is, employment income. What will be the employment income? Normally, when an individual is employed with some other organization or some other employer, it is obvious that there will be different kinds of payments, right? So what do you mean by income on which you can tax on? You can charge tax, right? First of all, income doesn't mean only the cash or only the wages and remuneration. Income may be different kinds of benefits. Benefits, as for example, in our country, government service holder, they are provided house, right? So it's a kind of benefit. In some organization, they provide mobile or cell phone to their employees, kinds of benefit. So what do you mean by income? First of all, you have to accumulate all the kinds of income on which you can charge tax on. So what may be the income? It may be basic, any kinds of basic payment. It may be commission, any kinds of commission, or you can say bonus. These are monetary words, or it may be benefits. Different kinds of benefits are offered by the employer to its employee. House allowance, travel allowance, medical allowance, even house accommodation, right? So different kinds of benefit may be there. Even if you are a banker, see, if you are a banker, bank provide beneficial loan to the employer. That means employee can borrow some amount against which they need not to provide any kinds of interest. They just have to provide that principal. So which is called, which are beneficial. So these all are benefits. So it may be benefits. It may be voucher. Voucher. We'll discuss this later on. So as a whole, you can say these are the different kinds of benefits, or these are the different kinds of income. Now the important thing you guys have to memorize, to calculate this income, you have to go through on receipt basis. What do you mean by receipt basis? That is basic, commission, benefit, voucher, or even reimbursed expenses. Reimbursed expenses, as for example TADM. For any kinds of office activity, when the employee is traveling in somewhere else, he will be provided different kinds of TADM, travel allowance. That is all the kind of reimbursed expenses actually. So these all are actually income. But the fact is, you have to find out this income, or you have to calculate this income on receipt basis, receipt within the tax year. No kinds of accrual income can be evaluated here. Accrual income means, as for example, income generated, but it will not be provided until some future period. So depend upon receipt basis, you have to calculate your total employment income. Now, this total employment income will not be taxed, or will not be taxable. From this total income, so this is your total employment income. employment income. This total employment income will not be taxable. From this taxable income, there are some allowable expenses. Allowable expenses which to be deducted. What may be the allowable expenses? Some allowable expenses are there, or you can say from this income you have to deduct these kinds of expenses, and afterwards you have to charge tax on it. Clear? So number one, we need to find out what are the allowable expenses here. Number one, see, any kinds of expenses which is wholly, exclusively and necessarily related with the performance of the activity. These kinds of expenses can be deducted from the income. So when you are deducting these kinds of expenses from the income, your taxable income, listen, right? So what do you mean by wholly, exclusively and necessarily? See, focus on example. Suppose you have to perform a duty. For that reason, do you know the meaning of ordinary commuting? Ordinary commuting means that is journey from home to office, right? So when you are making journey from home to office for the purpose of committing your duty, now you are not committing your duty. You are just going there, and afterwards you will be involved in doing some specific kind of duty. That's why these kinds of expenses for ordinary commuting, you cannot deduct these expenses. These are not allowable. To be allowable, the expense should be wholly, exclusively and necessarily related with the performance of the duty. See another example. Suppose your office send you Dhaka or another city for doing a kind of a specific job or a specific duty on behalf of their office, right? So in that case, whatever the expenses you are committing, you can charge that expenses, because that expenses is related with the performance of the duty. Clear? Another thing is, let's say, suppose for example, suppose you are using spectaculars, right? So in your office you can also use your spectaculars, but you cannot charge these kinds of expense as a kind of allowable expenses. Why? Because it is your personal needs. But if the fact is this a specific kind of spectaculars should be used by all the employee, then that become necessary. So any kinds of expenses which are wholly, even another example, see, your office can provide you mobile phone, right? You can use this mobile phone for call to your clients, as well as you can use this for your personal purpose. The cost which is required to meet with the clients, that is allowable expenses. But the call you are committing or you are conducting with your own purpose, with your relatives, those are not allowable. Clear? So if the expenses are wholly, exclusively and necessarily related to the purpose or performance of the duty, then you can deduct that. Number one. Number two, suppose you are a ACCA member, right? ACCA member. In that case, each and every year you have to provide the subscription. Any kinds of subscription to a professional body is allowed. You can deduct that. Number three, suppose for your office purpose you are using your own car. You have a car, you are using your own car. In that case, office can provide you some benefit regarding oil. That means when you are using your own car, we will see there are some kinds of expenses which is called approved mileage expenses payment. We will discuss this later on. It is another kind of expense. Then any kinds of contribution to the employer's, any kinds of contribution to the employer's stated insurance. That means when, or pension. Pension is this is pension. When you are contributing any amount, contributing a fixed amount for a pension scheme, that is also allowed. Another is, there is charity. Charity, when you are providing any kinds of charity from your gross wage as a kind of wage deduction scheme, that means each and every month from your gross wage a percentage or a portion will be deducted for a charity, any amount. That is also a kind of deduction, allowable expenses. Clear? So you can say these are the allowable expenses. After deducting these allowable expenses from the total employment income, whatever the thing remained, that is your taxable employment income on which tax will be charged. Clear? Now we need to find out what do you mean by the benefits. Benefits. We have discussed that is income not only mean the cash, right? Maybe benefit. As a whole, these benefits are divided into three groups. There are three types of benefits. One is exempt benefit. Exempt benefit. Another is benefit accessible for all employees. All. Another is benefit for P11D employees. See, exempt benefit. We have discussed that is kind of benefit. Any kinds of benefit is a kind of income. And when the benefit is provided to you from your employer, it's a kind of income. And you have to pay tax on this, right? But depend upon criteria. There are some kinds of benefit. And it is normally comes in your exam hall question. But these are exempt benefit. That means you do not have to add these kinds of benefit with your income. This will be exempt. No kinds of tax will be charged on this. And you have to memorize this. As a kind of example, suppose office provide you a car parking area. It is a kind of benefit. Office provide you lunch, kind of benefit. But in your book there are some kinds of rules, you have to go through that. Some rules are there and you have to memorize. These are the exam benefit. If this kinds of benefit comes with the question, you have to exam this. No kinds of tax will be charged on this. I will discuss in benefit accessible for all employees and benefit for P11D employees. First, think about the benefit accessible for all employees. These are two different kinds of benefit provided by the employer. One is voucher, and another is living accommodation. These are the two different kinds of benefit which to be charged as a kind of benefit for all kinds of employees. First of all, see voucher. What do you mean by voucher? Voucher. Normally, vouchers are two kinds. One is cash voucher And that is simple voucher. Cash voucher. When the employer provide kinds of cash voucher to its employee, cash vouchers means some kinds of paper document which can be converted into cash, right? So it's the kind of income for the employee. And the total cost of the cash voucher will be a kind of income on which tax will be charged. This is the kind of benefit. Clear? Okay. Then think about the simple voucher. Even organization may provide you some kinds of documents or voucher through which you can transact different kinds of goods and services. As for example, if you go to the Nestle each and every month Nestle provides some voucher to its employee. With the exchange of this voucher, the employee can withdraw different kinds of goods, or you can say product from the Nestle, noodles, chocolates, etc., etc. So these are the voucher. Here, what will be the benefit? Cost of the products, cost of the voucher. Yes, that will be counted as a benefit. Then another thing is credit card. Credit card. Even organization can provide you credit card. By using this credit card, you can buy different kinds of goods and services, right? So what will be the benefit? You can buy goods for your own purpose. At the same time, you can use this credit card to buy different kinds of products for business purpose, right? Here, benefit will be only price of those goods and services which are used for your own personal purpose and which you buy through this credit card. Clear? There is only the personal items price will be benefit here. So as a whole, these all are benefit under voucher. Now think about the another kind of benefit which is called accumulation. Accumulation. That is, employee may be provided accumulation, right, by the employer. So what will be the benefit in that case, on which tax will be charged, right? Here for accommodation, one is basic charge. Basic charge. Basic charge how? Basic charge means higher between these two. One is annual value, annual value will be provided. Annual value of the accommodation will be always provided. And another is rent provided by the employer on behalf of the employer. The fact is, employer can rent some property and then arrange the accommodation for his employee, right? So on behalf of the employee, employer is providing each and every month rent. So basic benefit will be higher off in between these two. Annual value will be provided, and there may be rent provided by the employer, not the employee. Rent provided by the employer on behalf of the employee. In between these two, what is higher, that will be the kind of basic benefit. Plus additional benefit. Additional benefit even before the retirement of my father, before the retirement, we were accommodated by a bungalow, Vishal bungalow, right? So that is most costly accommodation process. So when the employee actually provided costly accommodation with the basic charge, there will be some other additional charges. And what will be that additional charges? Additional charges will be costly accommodation. Costly accommodation. What should be the additional charge? Additional charge is cost of providing the accommodation minus 75,000 into specific kind of interest. This formula will not be provided in your exam hall. You have to memorize this. Just see in the FA17 whether this range is 75,000 or not. Living accommodation is yes sir? Living accommodation most probably 75,000. Okay, you can go through later on. See, এখানে দেখো দেখি all benefits is here. Benefits, exam benefit, then taxable benefit, $75,000. And what is the interest rate? And you have to memorize this interest rate as well. 3%? 2.5%. So this interest is 2.5%. You guys have to memorize this formula, and even this interest rate will not be provided. You have to memorize this. That is in the case of costly accommodation. With the basic charge, some other kinds of charge will be added. And what is that? That is the cost of providing the accommodation minus 75,000 into a specific interest rate. For 18-19, this is 2.5%. Now, what do you mean by this cost of accommodation? Cost of providing the accommodation. What do you mean by this? See, here আজকে আরেকটা ফর্মুলা বলবো তারপর শেষ বেশি প্রেসার দিব here what do you mean by this cost of providing accommodation? Cost of providing the accommodation may be এখানে দেখো may be original cost or current market value. Cost of providing accommodation means original cost or current market value. Suppose you are the employer, right? You bought a house for your employees within 6 years. Within 6 years before first providing it to your employees, right? In that case, cost of providing the accommodation means original cost, the purchase price. The purchase price. If this is provided within 6 years, or if this is bought within 6 years before first providing to their employees. Clear? But if you acquired this accommodation more than 6 years before first providing the employees, more than 6 years, in that case, it will be the current market value. Current market value of that accommodation. Clear? Then plus any kinds of capital expenses, improvement expenses before current tax year. After buying the asset, you can go for, or you can use different kinds of capital expenditure or capital improvement expenditure for that asset. So whatever the expenditure you have already expended up to this current tax year, that will be added with that, right? So see here, the thing is, suppose you bought the asset within 6 years, and where original cost is, suppose as for example $10. Within 6 years, $10, and within this 6 year you have expended $5 as a kind of capital improvement expenditure up to current tax year. In that case, the total cost will be 15. Cost of providing is 15. Now the fact is, you purchased or bought this asset more than 6 years earlier, more than 6 years before more than 6 years, right? In that case, you have to use the current market price. And as for example, current market price is $18. So when you are using current market price, in that case, you need not to charge any kinds of capital improvement with that, because capital improvement charge is also within that current market price. Remember this. When you are using original cost, capital improvement should be added to that. But when you are using market price, that means if you buy that item more than 6 years earlier, then market price, current market price. In current market price, it is no need to add capital improvement. So this is the cost of providing the accommodation. And if this cost of providing this accommodation is more than 75,000, as for example, this is 1 lakh. 1 lakh minus 75,000. That means 25,000. Within this 25,000, 0.025. This portion will be a kind of benefit. What kinds of benefit? Accommodation benefit. Clear? Now, with this thing, you have to remember another two important things. Number one is, it may be possible the employee were not live within the total tax year. Tax year means April to April, 6th April of current year to 5th April of the next year. Suppose the employee accommodate the accommodation in December, right? That means in that case, first of all, you find out the benefit. Suppose the benefit is, as for example, $100. This benefit is for 12 months. Your tenant or employee is within that accommodation for 3 months. In that case, the benefit should be prorated. This is number one. And number two is, suppose the total benefit comes after calculating, the total benefit is $100. It may be possible in some cases. The employee have to provide rent as well. Suppose, as for example, the total benefit comes as $100. The employee provided $50 as a kind of rent. Employee. That will be deducted. It will decrease its benefit because he has already provided $50 as a kind of rent. So if there is an option that employee is also providing the rent against that amount should be deducted from the benefit. Even the benefit may be prorated. Clear? This is, and the last one is, in the case of expenses we have discussed, that is approved minus allowance payment. Approved minus allowance payment. That is, when you are using your own car for the business purpose and business actually provide you some kinds of allowances for that. Eta paiso? Approved minus allowance ber koro. Find out the approved minus allowance payment because we need a specific amount. Understand?
So motor car private fuel and gas also.
না ফুয়েল অন্য জিনিস এটা পরে এটার আগে হবে অ্যাপ্রুভ মাইনাস অ্যালাউন্স অ্যাকোমোডেশনের আগে হবে দেখি আমার কাছে দাও দেখো এখানে লেখা আছে approved minus allowance payment তো অনেক কিছু চলে গেছে জব রিলেটেড অ্যাকোমোডেশনের আগে দেখো ভাউচার ওকে এটা তোমরা পরে দেখে নিও আমি জাস্ট এটা বলবো I just discuss the main basic see this approved minus allowance will be provided in your exam এটা দেয়া থাকবে রেটটা as for example suppose see এখানে দেখো suppose approved minus allowance is $0.20 per mile suppose as for example $20 per mile you traveled 20 miles. So according to your approved minus allowance, your allowance should be 20 into 0.2. That means how much? $4. So this standard will be provided. So here I'm just discussing the kind of example. So according to your minus allowance, your approved benefit should be 4. If your company is providing $10, that means $6 is your benefit on which tax will be charged. If the company is providing $4, there is no kinds of benefit on which tax will be charged. If your company providing $2, that means you can claim further extra $2 or extra $2 which will be deducted from your total income. That is called approved minus allowance payment. So this rate will be provided in your exam. So thank you for today. We will discuss next segment in next class.